Conference realignment is back, and there are all sorts of scenarios, potential meetings, schools talking to every conference imaginable. And I think there are a couple of schools that need to fight the urge to jump ship because I don't know that it makes their situations any better. When the Pac-2 became the six-pack with the additions of Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Colorado State joining Oregon State, Washington State, they basically said, we're going to get to 8 teams, maybe 10, and fight for every dollar we can get. And that makes sense. Oregon State and Washington State have a really good brand in the Pac-12. They're going to keep the Pac-12 name even if they don't get to 12. It's weird math in college sports right now. But there was a lot of talk and discussion about like, okay, well, wait, why those 4 Mountain West schools? Why not UNLV? Why not everybody else in the Mountain West? Why isn't this just a Mountain West Pac-12 merger? And they have basically bigger site set. Well, those bigger site sets are on schools like Memphis, Tulane, and UTSA, reports claim. And I'm here to argue for why Memphis, Tulane, and UTSA should stay where they are. Because right now, Memphis, Tulane, and UTSA essentially have to beat Memphis, Tulane, and UTSA to make the college football playoff. And that's a really, really, really big deal. You can argue that with Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State, Colorado State joining hands with Oregon State and Washington State, that Pac insert number here is going to be the de facto top dog in the group of 6 expected. But I don't know that that's necessarily the case because it's only going to have that status. Those 6 schools together are only going to have that status if UTSA, Tulane, and Memphis are joining them in that conference. And I don't know how much more money that deal for those schools, should Memphis, UTSA, and Tulane leave the American to join the six-pack. I don't know how much more money that's going to lead to them in media rights deals. And that's what drives the boat today is TV dollars. I don't know how much more money it's going to lead for Memphis, UTSA, and Tulane. Now, already the American is not a great geographic fit for the entire conference as a whole, right? Like those schools are together from necessity, not because they necessarily want to be. It didn't get started as a geographic conference the way that the SEC, Big Ten, Pac-12, and even Mountain West did. Got put together from necessity of like, these schools don't want to be associated with their neighbors, but they do want to be viewed as upper echelon programs in the college football pantheon. So they're put together that way. But I don't think Memphis, UTSA, and Tulane gain a whole lot from leaving the American to join the six-pack as it sits right now. Other than you maybe get a slight bump financially, guaranteed financially, to where you make, just to make dollars and cents super simple, let's say that they make $1 million a year in the American. If they go to $5 million a year, which I think I don't think is a completely fair projected jump to the six-pack, is that worth it? Is flying all of your teams all of the time in an ever-changing college landscape where we're not far away from you being forced to pay players out of your coffers, is adding those travel expenses right now a great idea? I would say no. And then it makes your pathway to the college football playoff significantly more difficult because those 6 schools are going to be pretty good competition year after year in the college football playoff race. So instead of putting those schools on your schedule and ensuring that, like, you have to play them week after week, week after week, month after month, year after year, let a group of people in a hotel ballroom in Dallas decide which one of you are better and put you in the college football playoff. Because if the American sticks together right now, or if it even adds Air Force, all it's going to do is look better and better and better. Memphis, Tulane, and UTSA have all of the leverage in the negotiations, because if Oregon State, Washington State, Colorado State, Boise State, San Diego State, and Fresno State, if they wanted Wyoming and Nevada and UNLV and New Mexico to be in this new conference, they either just would have waited to put them all in this new conference, or they would have merged with the Mountain West, taken on the Pac-14 name, and been done with it. They didn't do that. And to do the whole Brian Windhurst, now why would they do that? Because they don't want to be with certain schools in that conference any longer. And I find that discussion to be incredibly interesting, and probably one we'll have for another day. But Memphis, those 6 schools need Memphis, UTSA, and Tulane much more than Memphis, Tulane, and UTSA need those 6 schools, because their path to the college football playoff, more often than not, is pretty easy. Whoever's going to win the American Conference is going to the college football playoff. And the 6-pack have to get to 8 to even be in the conversation. And you know what? Who they backfill with, if it's not Memphis, Tulane, and UTSA, is not likely to propel them above the American into that stratosphere of the de facto 9 times out of 10, this is going to be the representative. So why make your life more difficult down the line? Why? And maybe it's just simply you're afraid that the boat is going to pass you by, right? That if we don't get on the Pac-6, Pac-8, 12, 14, 29 bandwagon right now, we're never going to get that chance. Because it seems increasingly likely that Memphis, Tulane, and UTSA's chances of joining a Power 4 conference are slim to nil. And if they are, it's joining an ACC that has probably been decimated by the loss of Florida State, Clemson, Louisville, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Virginia, Duke, etc. And I understand. I know that it's really easy, 1, to sit here and say, like, you shouldn't do that. But 2, it's really easy to see the offer on the table now and have that sure thing that you feel like we feel really good about the 6-pack. It's real hard to turn that down, because a sure thing is a sure thing, right? Essentially, if you turn that down, you are playing deal or no deal in the college football landscape, which nobody wants to do, because nobody wants to be wrong. Nobody wants to look back on the decision they made and went, oh, God, we screwed that one up. We could have been this. We could have done that. Tulane is kind of like in that boat already. They were in the SEC, and then in the 60s, we're like, to hell with this. And now people are like, I bet Tulane wishes they were in the SEC right now, but they're not, because of a decision they made. And nobody wants to be the person that, like, viewed as, well, that's the guy who kept us away from the Pac-6. That's the guy who ensured that we kept playing with the Tulsas and the Navies and the insert group of 5 schools here. And so I don't expect Tulane, Memphis, and UTSA to turn those opportunities down. I'm just telling you that their path to the college football playoff and big time dollars, kind of year after year, is exponentially more difficult if they leave the American and join the Pac-6 right now. But they've got all the leverage. They should demand whatever they can from those 6 schools. And I guess my thought kind of is like, if you feel like you're in that spot already, if you feel like you're in a position to where we've already got the upper hand and we can negotiate for really ridiculous things that we want, it's probably not a match made in heaven to begin with. But if you're going to make the move, get what you can, because in the long run, you're probably hurting your chances to make the college football playoff. And in a 12-team and eventually 14-team playoff, one, there's only so many chances that this is going to happen before either the Power 4 schools say, to hell with this, we're not letting Group of 5 schools in anymore, or the Group of 5 starts its own playoff. And in both cases, I think you're probably better off being in the American than you are with those 6 other schools. But that's just my take on it. I want to hear from UTSA fans, Tulane fans, Memphis fans. What do you think? Do you want to see your team in the Pac-6 become the Pac-9, become the Pac-10, whatever the number is? Or do you want to stay in the American? Would love to hear from you. Drop a comment in the comments down below. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.